All right, good morning, everybody. This is Susan Medina with the CBI. I'm going to kind of do a little fixing here. I hope everybody can hear me okay. There's no echo, I'm hoping. And sorry, I'm getting a whole lot of invites here. I apologize for that. All right, it's 10 o'clock, and I believe most of our speakers are on the line for today's briefing. I believe the Saguache County Sheriff, Dan Warwick, is not able to join us today. He had some technical issues with his computer, so and some other things going on. So if there are any questions directed to Saguache, we'll use that chat feature, and then I can certainly coordinate with the sheriff on getting responses to that. Again, I appreciate everybody's patience in this virtual world. I had a media request earlier about if we were in one spot, and we're not. Actually, they're spread out across the state at their respective agencies. Reminder to me to turn off my phone, and another reminder to make sure those mics are off. So how today is going to work is I'll do a couple of ground rules, and then we have a number of speakers from agencies in Southern Colorado who will be sharing some information and updates about this investigation. We will have a Q&A. I will warn you at the start that this is very early on in this investigation, and there are far many questions than we have answers for, but we'll do our best to navigate through those. The chat feature is going to be the place where I will monitor those and then direct those questions to the speakers. Let's hold off on those questions until after the speakers are done, and then we'll work through those. And again, for those that we don't get through, I'll coordinate with you at the end of the conference and throughout the day. If you could be sure to leave your name and your media outlet, that would be very helpful as well. Also in the chat box is the list of speakers who are going to be part of today's news conference. Their names and their titles and spellings are there, so that's available to you, so they don't need to be saying their names. And then we'll have some other images that will be shared during the course of the news conference. So I'll pop those links into the chat. If you have any problems accessing that, just let me know and I'll get those to you offline. Okay, as I said, we're going to have the CEOs of the agencies participating in this investigation share their thoughts and some updates, and then at the conclusion of that, we'll go through a question and answer. Unless there's a need for it, I don't foresee any other news conferences in the immediate future. If there are any updates, I'll probably handle those through my office by news release. And just as a reminder, if you could direct your questions to me, email, text, or you can try to call me. I have to tell you though, I'm getting lots of calls, so it may be a little bit delayed in getting back with you. So with that, I think that's all of the ground rules that I have. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and get this started, and I would like to introduce the Monte Vista Chief, George Dingfelder, to go ahead and start us off. Chief, go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you, Susan. So George Dingfelder, Chief of Police in the city of Monte Vista. So just to kind of set the stage for this briefing, as an investigative group that you'll hear from today, we've kind of reached a critical point in this investigation where we feel we can share some information regarding the remains that were found down in rural Conejos County. So there's a lot to go through here, so just to kind of set the stage for this. So over the course of the past several months, several of our agencies within the San Luis Valley have been investigating missing persons reports, or we've taken missing persons reports and we've been investigating missing persons. However, I'd like to make this very clear from the very beginning here. Just because human remains have been found, we are not associating them with the missing persons cases at this time, and for anybody to do so would be irresponsible and complete speculation. So again, human remains have been found, but we're not necessarily associating them at this time with missing persons, and I'm sure those questions are going to come up and we'll answer those at the end. So just over a week ago, the Conejos Sheriff's Office, and you'll hear from Sheriff Garth Crowther here shortly, they conducted a search warrant in rural Conejos County down in the South area, unrelated to the missing persons. There was no relation to the missing persons when they went to do their search warrant. During this search, however, the sheriff's office and agents from the Colorado Bureau of Investigation found human remains. For those of you that aren't familiar with this area, these are very rural, small jurisdictions. So often when we have these big cases, we all jump in and give each other a hand on these large investigations. And this area where they were searching, it was a fairly large area, very extensive. So almost immediately, a lot of our agencies offered Sheriff Crowther assistance in doing this, as well as we were interested to see if there was any connection to our missing persons. And again, to reiterate, just because we found human remains, we are not associating them with any of our missing persons at this time. So within a couple of days of doing that first initial search warrant, law enforcement gathered evidence that led us to another property fairly close to where the first search warrant was done. And at this second property, again, agents and officers found more human remains at that second property. So with that being said, and knowing that this was getting quite extensive, along with the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, all of our agencies joined together to form a task force kind of concept to investigate this here, these remains that we have found. And again, we're small rural agencies, most of us 10, 15, if that, officers. So it just made sense to form a task force along with the Colorado Bureau of Investigation to investigate this. So regarding the remains that we have found to this point, so we have consulted with a forensic anthropologist who has confirmed that the remains are human. And I would ask you right up front here to please be patient with us. That there's a lot to be done on identifying these remains. It's going to take several weeks to months to identify these remains. And just one, due to the condition that they were in the skeletal remains. So I can tell you we cannot positively identify the remains. We don't know whether they're male, female, age, or any of that kind of stuff. So again, when you get to the questions, I'd ask for you that you refrain from even going down that path, because we don't know. We're already at that point. We just simply do not know who the remains are. But what I can tell you and verify is that the forensic pathologist or anthropologist has confirmed that we have the remains of 3 people or 3 victims at this point. And that's really about all that we've got. I know there's been a lot of misinformation out there regarding how many remains that we have found and stuff, but I will confirm that we have found remains of 3 victims at this point. And again, when we get to the question and answer, I'd ask that you, there's really not, that's all we're going to release on it at this time. So with that, I'm going to toss this over to Chief Anderson from the Alamosa Department, from the Alamosa Police Department.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Ken Anderson. I'm the Chief of Police for the City of Alamosa. And I guess to follow up what Chief Dienfelder is saying, I'll go right into suspect information. So the Alamosa Police Department has clearly identified a suspect in this case. And I believe Susan is going to put a picture up here shortly. He is still currently on the run, and I'm just going to jump into his name. His name is Adre, and that's A-D-R-E, Jordan Barrows, B-A-R-O-Z. His date of birth is 10/28 of 1994. Now, this individual is from the Sanford, Colorado area, which is the same area we're kind of talking about in southern Colorado. It's just north of the New Mexico border. So I can tell you, based on this, we currently have a warrant, an active warrant for homicide for Mr. Barrows. And I would say he should be considered at this time armed and dangerous, should not be contacted by the public. And we are encouraging people to please contact 911 if they see Mr. Barrows. But I also want to point something out, that although Mr. Barrows currently is our suspect in this homicide investigation, all suspects clearly are innocent until proven guilty. Okay, so he will have his day in court, but let me make it clear that my main goal right now, and working with all these other law enforcement agencies from the Valley, including CBI, our main goal is to get him off the street. He is a danger to the public right now. So I am asking for assistance from community members, anybody who sees anything, to report it to us. We'll follow up on it. That is our main goal, you know, to work with the community currently and just ask for assistance. You know, we're kind of limited on resources down here, and I can tell you that we are doing everything that we possibly can to locate and apprehend this individual. It is still an active investigation, so there's only so much that I can release right now. Let's see, what else? Did we get a picture up of him by chance, or is that going to come after, Susan?
Chief, that's up there in the chat. So there's a link to that. If anybody needs that after the news conference, they can certainly reach out to me if they don't have that.
Okay. So as George or Chief Dingfelder had mentioned, there's been a number of questions about the suspect being a serial killer. I think it's a little too early to categorize right now. We don't want to speculate at this time. So I think that's clear enough that we're not going to speculate about that. We cannot classify or label the allegations involving the suspect until we know a great deal more. And like the chief had mentioned earlier, this is going to take a pretty long time. We're looking at probably a month or two of further investigating. So there's a lot of details yet to kind of show their face on this. So I think that's all I've got right now. I'm sure we'll answer questions here shortly. I'm going to pass this on to the Conejos County Sheriff, Garth Crowther.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Sheriff Garth Crowther, the Conejos County Sheriff's Office. I'm going to talk a little bit about the searches that we've done. The search warrant itself, at this time, we're not going to go into detail what we're looking for and why we're on the properties, but we will talk a little bit about the search. On the 10th of November, the Conejos County Sheriff's Office requested assistance from the Colorado Bureau of Investigation to assist us in executing a search warrant on a property in Las Sauces, which is located approximately 20 miles southeast of Alamosa, Colorado. During this search, remains were found on the property. The remains were later determined to be human remains. So based on this information that we found at the first scene, we got a task force together that you've heard about. This task force consists of the Conejos County Sheriff's Office, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, Alamosa Police Department, the Saguache Sheriff's Office, Monte Vista Police Department, the Colorado State Patrol. Our department is just not big enough to handle what we were running into there. So the task force was formed on the 13th of November. Members of the task force assisted in searching a second property in which it's in close proximity to the first property. Additional human remains were found on the second property. All remains were sent for forensics analysis and are at this time being analyzed. Investigators plan to continue searching the second site. It is imperative that we perform and exhaust the search of the area to ensure all remains and all evidence is found. as information develops, we've set up a hotline for tips. That number, I know you can get from Susan, and it'll be on the screen. If you know any information, we encourage that you give us that information. Investigation will continue. Information from the tips, information from the end of it, information. The department's heads will assign people from the task force to follow up and get the information. We can't give a lot of information out because of the nature of it, and we don't want to jeopardize the investigation. I would like to say that the community of Las Sauces, the vast majority of the people in that community are very upstanding citizens, and I would ask that you don't let this reflect on that community. With that being said, I'd like to turn it over to the director of the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, Director Kemper.
Yeah, hi, my name is Chris Schaefer. I'm actually Deputy Director of Investigations for the Colorado Bureau of Investigation. I know Chief Anderson wants to jump back in here for a quick second. He's got something else he needs to say.
I do. Thank you, Chris. One thing I did want to point out, I wanted to get I guess his nickname, Mr. Barros' nickname that most everybody knows him by, at least what I'm hearing. He goes by Psycho. I just wanted to put that out there because he is commonly called Psycho around these areas. So I appreciate it. That's all I had.
Okay, so obviously there's a lot more work to do in this case. We are using investigative resources from all the respective agencies and more. CBI is processing the crime scenes. From there, we're going to have to get evidence to be tested and analyzed at CBI's Forensic Services Unit. So there's a lot more work to do. I need to emphasize the importance of getting Barros, or Psycho, into custody. That's our #1 priority right now. As Chief Anderson has said, he is a danger to the public. He should be perceived as armed and dangerous. Now, what we're asking for is for anyone who has any information, either on the whereabouts of Barros or on the investigation itself, to call our tip line. That number is 719-270-0210. Again, the tip line number is 719-270-0210. You can leave your information or you can remain anonymous. We just want you to call if you have any information whatsoever on either the whereabouts of Barros or on the investigation itself. Our priority from now is to get Mr. Barros in custody, and it's also to identify the remains of the individuals that we have found. However, as Chief Dingfelder has said, this could and probably will take a significant amount of time. We don't have any time frame on that, but it will take a significant amount of time. Now, we've also fielded a number of questions about Suzanne Morphew, and that is the individual who's been missing for about 6 months from Chaffee County. I will tell you right now that we have absolutely no indication whatsoever that these two cases are connected. Again, there's no information right now or no indication that these cases are connected. However, that being said, we are going to go and will have been and will remain to go wherever the evidence takes us. Because, sadly, Miss Morphew is not the only missing person from Southern Colorado. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the director of the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, John Camper.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. CBI, as all of you know, is largely a by-request agency, and we were gratified to be able to participate in this task force and lend any resources that we can. As you can see, the scope is extremely large. It's utilized a wide variety of resources. In addition to the agencies that you've heard from today, we're grateful for the assistance of many others who have contributed, local, state, and federal, to include the U.S. Marshal, Colorado State Patrol, and even the Department of Fire Prevention and Control, who provided us with some air support in a large search area. The CBI Forensic Services Unit has done a remarkable job under very challenging conditions. Let me just say that as identifications of the victims are made, we will most certainly keep all of you advised. But let me add, though, that ultimately there are a few families who will eventually be told that these remains are that of their loved one. And then there are a lot of families that will be told that they are not. In either scenario, it's a traumatic blow. So although I'm sure it goes without saying, I I guess I would respectfully ask that you be aware of the trauma and emotions that families can experience as a result of media speculation, requests for interviews, and so forth. So with that, I believe he's joined us. Before we open it up to questions, let me turn it over to 12th Judicial District Attorney Robert Willett for a few final words.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you can hear me. I'm joining by telephone this morning. I just want to echo that, law enforcement has worked tirelessly since this situation came to the attention, and our office has supported this to a limited extent at this point because essentially the case is still in the hands of law enforcement. However, I would echo that Mr. Barros at this point is presumed innocent. He will have his day in court once he's apprehended. And as that plays out, at some point he will make an appearance and our office will be involved with regard to potentially filing charges if the evidence indicates his responsibility. Again, he is presumed innocent. However, it's very important at this point, in my opinion, to take him into custody peaceably and start the judicial process. As we are able to, we support law enforcement by essentially looking over warrants and that type of thing at this point. Once the case is resolved by an arrest, then our office would step in. So I think that's all I have to say at this point, and I'm going to hand this back to Susan. Thank you.
Thank you, District Attorney. Okay, so before we jump into the questions via chat, again, keep those mics silent, please, and then we'll direct questions as they're needed. In that chat feature, there are a number of links that have been dropped in there. The speakers list is there. The information about the suspect is there, as well as a couple of images from the properties that have been searched. You can copy those links and utilize those photos and information at will. Those are available to the media through this. If you'd like them after, certainly just reach out to me, okay? So at this point, let's go ahead and open this up for questions. And they are coming so fast and furious. So I'm going to try to get this before it scrolls out of my scene. The first question is, how many missing person cases are active in the Valley? I'm going to send this over to Chief Dienfelder, but there's a lot of different jurisdictions here, so I don't know if we'll have the answers to that. Chief, do you want to add on to that?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and we knew that would come up. So I can't tell you that number. I can just tell you what our agencies, I know of at least 3 or 4, probably more. But again, as Deputy Director Schaefer mentioned, there's a lot of missing persons, as well as what Director Camper discussed. There's a lot of missing persons all over southern Colorado, and we're very close to the New Mexico border. So northern New Mexico, southern Colorado, there's a lot of missing persons. And I think Director Camper said it best, there's a lot of people want to know where their loved ones are. And so it's really too early to, there's just no way we can put a number on that without contacting every agency in southern Colorado.
So the next question is related to the search warrant. That's from Priscilla. Do we want to talk a little bit about that? I know things are sealed. Chief, do you want to address that?
So I'm looking, what's the question?
Oh, I'm sorry. What was the original search warrant related to activities by Mr. Barros?
I believe Sheriff Crowder probably answered that best, but I believe it was related to stolen equipment and stolen vehicles.
Great. Our next one is from Jeremy from CNN. Let's direct this to Chris Schaefer. Again, very early on, so I don't know how much information we have, but was forensic information available to determine how long the remains would have been there on the properties or the length of time they had been decomposing?
Yeah, being very early on in the investigation, we do not have any of that information yet. Whether that will even come out in time, I can't tell you. I don't want to speak to the condition of those, but yeah, we just do not have that information.
Okay. Julia from ABC wanted the spelling of the suspect. It's Adre, A-D-R-E, Jordan, J-O-R-D-A-N, Barros, B-A-R-O-Z, date of birth 10/28 of 94. And as a reminder of what Chief Anderson had indicated, he does go by the name Psycho. That's what most people in the area would know him as. The next is from the Valley Publishing. Is there any indication of cause of death? I'll go ahead and direct that to Deputy Director Schaefer.
Again, at this time, it's way too early. You have to realize that these search warrants started right around a week ago. No, we do not have that information. That will take some time to come out.
Great. Chief, I'll just throw this out. I'll start with you, Chief Dingfelder. From Elise at the Denver Post, how did investigators connect Barros to the human remains?
So I'll actually defer that over to Chief Anderson, but I think that's one of those, that's just information we're not going to share at this point. So I'll let Chief Anderson speak to that.
Yeah, and Chief, you're exactly right. I mean, based on the fact that this is still an ongoing active investigation, those details cannot be released at this time.
Great. There's a follow-up, which I think is going to be the same answer, so I'll take that. Why is Mr. Barros a suspect? The information is all part of that investigation, and it's early on. I believe the records are sealed in this, so there's not too many details that we can provide. Again, from Priscilla at the Valley Courier, what homicide is the active arrest warrant for? And again, I'm very sorry to our reporters out there. There's just a lot of that we just can't go into right now, but as soon as information is available, we will provide that to the forefront. The next question is from Matt from KUSA. Could you give us some sense of the information you have that allowed you to name Barros as a suspect? Again, Chief, do you want to talk about anything, or
No, I think it comes back to the same thing, and these are all really related. We really can't make any comments right now. I don't want to jeopardize our investigation.
So a lot of these questions are detailed to Mr. Barros. I think just building upon what all of our leaders of our police organizations have said, it is of critical importance that Mr. Barros is taken into custody. So we encourage strongly people to report any information about him. There is a question about why this individual may be called psycho. That's from Jim Anderson at the AP. Chief Anderson, do we have any information that we could share on that?
I do not. I just know that is his nickname that he goes by.
Okay. All right. One question we had is about the possible whereabouts. Could this individual be in New Mexico or still in the state? Chief Anderson, do you want to address that?
That one's hard to say. Like I say, we're actively looking for him right now. I can't tell you where he's at because I honestly don't know. We are working all leads. That's why we're requesting any and all assistance the community can provide. We just need their help on this.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to do about 2 more questions here, and then you're all logged in the chat, and then I will capture that and then return calls as the afternoon goes on. So this one's from Bob Richards from KSLV. Do you have any reason to believe that there are any more victims to be found, and are there any ongoing searches? Chief Dingfelder, do you want to take that one?
Yeah. Good morning, Bob. So I guess the answer to that is we're still searching the property. So I think we're probably another day or so in that property, and there's just at this point there's no indication that we'll find anything else. But again, it's just we just don't have that information.
Yeah, and as Chief Crowther said, or Sheriff Crowther, I'm sorry, that there's going to be an exhaustive search. I think we owe that to our victims and just this whole process that we extensively search these properties. Okay, this will be the last one from Ashley Michaels at Fox 31. How does a crime of this significance weigh on you as law enforcement, and especially those working in such small, close-knit communities? And I'll let whoever, sheriffs or chiefs go ahead and chime in on that.
Well, I'll start that. I think whether you're in a small, close-knit community or whatever, I think law enforcement as a whole, that anytime we deal with these type of crimes, it always weighs on you, especially the investigators who are actively and directly involved in it. Unfortunately, it's part of the job, but of course, in remote communities, everybody knows somebody who probably connected or related to the denominator. So it's very difficult. So thank you.
Chief or Sheriff, would you like to join in on any of those, or are you in a good place?
I can jump in just real quick. I mean, if they're asking for opinions as far as what this does, obviously we don't see cases like this very often. Like I had talked to one of the Denver reporters briefly yesterday, you know, she asked about the community, and I can tell you this is the San Luis Valley itself is fairly small. It's a very tight-knit community, though. We really know a lot of people here. You know, most of us have grown up here. So now we're at a point where it is imperative, and I've said this already, it is imperative that we get this individual off the street. When I say he's a danger to the community, I mean exactly that. He's a danger, and we really need assistance to get him apprehended as soon as possible. You know, just trying to keep the community safe. That's our number one goal. Keep the community safe, and we're trying to do the best we can right now. We're just asking for a little assistance. So I think it takes a toll on us, obviously. So, you know, thanks to all the other agencies who had jumped in and helped out, and Director Camper and his team. Without him, we'd be struggling. So it's great. Law enforcement's a team, and this is really showing how we operate. So
Thanks, Chief. Sheriff, do you have any final thoughts?
I would just say all of our people that's under us have just worked themselves to exhaustion. And I am proud of all the people that's come together on this. And we as the department heads, we have to appreciate the ones that are, what I would say, the worker ants out there and doing the job. And I am proud of them.
Well said. All right, at this point, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap this news conference. As a reminder, I'll go through the list of questions that are there and reach out to individuals who have those questions. Unless there's a need for it, we won't have another press briefing, but you know, we would use a news release to provide any breaking news updates with this. Please direct all media inquiries to me. I'm the hub for that, and if I don't know the answer, I'll certainly research that and get that information. I'd like to let these individual agencies focus on the task at hand, which is trying to locate this individual. So thank you again for joining us, and we'll talk soon.